Um, oh, I don't even know why I went here. You guys can watch what I'm doing. I don't care. Um, so here, let's go to my property and let's move over to that screen. There we are. So there we go. Okay. I don't know why Windows swaps my monitors around all the time. And I just jumped into things today and wasn't even taking a look. So should have been watching that. Um, good there. We're good there. Okay. There we go. So NX is now upgraded. Um, and I need to run the migration script. Go ahead and run these migrations. That should pick up everything else, and then we'll commit this. Um, all right. Now it's going to upgrade Angular for us again. Okay. So now we're good. Um, go ahead and stage all these. I commit the migrations because migrations are typically idempotent, and so they're fine. Um, we can see the NX upgraded, and it migrated the CLI, and that's fine. We're good there. And then our PNPM lock, we'll commit that, and we upgraded NX. Go ahead and commit that and push it. There's the breaking changes we were talking about. So now let's run NCU again and just see what we need to grab. Um, we've got some Angular stuff that needs to be upgraded. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll get the Angular CLI to 19.15. And we'll get the rest of this Angular stuff upgraded. And then we can grab a lot of this stuff here too. That'll be fine. I don't want to mess with major changes, but we will take a look at the stylistic ESLint plugin and see if that breaks anything. Let's start with Angular. And NCU. Let's just see what all Angular stuff we have to upgrade. Got a few. So PNPM exec NX migrate. And we want to migrate the Angular CLI first. Um, and then from there, we'll migrate Angular core. And then the schematics are usually the last thing we have to upgrade. We'll probably grab the Jest preset Angular also because it's such a minor change. It's a patch change, right? and then oh, we can grab that at the end. Um, we can grab it as part of when we upgrade our tests and stuff. Um, but let's get NX and Angular. Those are our two core projects, and so I typically upgrade those together, and then once they're upgraded, then I go in and I run the tests just to make sure that everything works. Um, so no migrations on that one. So now we can do core. Um, and then once we've done core, we can start taking a look at um, well, we need to do schematics. Then we can run and see if we missed anything else, Angular NGRX related. Um, if we haven't, then we'll go ahead and run. We'll run the pnpm install. Um, so we need to do schematics, um, and I don't expect any migrations, but you never know, and it's nice that NX will catch them for us if we need them. Um, you guys may notice that my voice is a bit raspy, and yesterday I mentioned that I was cheering for my daughter at her her drill competition. Um, they did really well. Um, they they won't be moving on to state on Saturday, so last night was the last night that they competed. They looked really good. They did really well. Um, but their season ended last night, and that you know for the seniors it was a little bit sad. But for my daughter, who is a junior, she's just got next year to look forward to. So, um, but it's always a bit of a relief for them because like once the drill season ends, their early mornings end, and a whole bunch of other things end for them, and things become a little bit easier. Um, like uh, they go into the high school at 6:30 most mornings, 6:30 a.m. most mornings. And then their first period class is always their drill team. So their practice runs from 6:30 a.m. until the end of their first period class. Um, and then they typically have drill in the evenings too. Um, they do a lot of dancing and a lot of practicing and stuff. Um, so once the season's over, it works out pretty nicely for them that things slow down a little bit. They still practice and things, but it's not quite as intense as when they're competing. Um, so this all upgraded. So again, because I'm a content creator at this point, we're gonna go ahead and commit everything. Um, and my suggestion is you fix your tests before you do these commits. I do this just because struggling is often um, it works to be good content, right? And let's do testing, and let's also make sure that the build runs. We're gonna run our tests and our builds, um, and just make sure this all works. Um, so interesting. I got a little bit distracted because it said, "Hey, I'm building the project graph for 5 nodes," um, which is pretty cool. That's a nice little bit of information. Um, So when we told it that we wanted to run tests and builds, it looked at our project graph and it found 5 nodes that it needs to analyze. Um, and then it went in and it set up the stuff to build them. So we can see that, hey, it's running our tests. And then we can also see down here that we've got a production build going and the rest of our tests are running. So we're good. Um, One thing that I did, um, because I've got an NX cache key set up in this project, and I'm committing that, I went into the NX cloud and I made it so that this key is read only. Um, and um, the reason for that is I don't want to commit a read write key to a public repository, right? Like I don't care if you guys have a read only key. You can go in and you can read the cache and get cached builds off of the server. Um, but I don't want to give you guys a read write key where you can get in and do stuff with my NX Cloud cache. So um, there that's the reason that we're getting these messages. Um, so our Angular upgrade worked. Um, the next thing to look at is let's take a look and just see what else is left to migrate. And see if we have to run any more migrations. Um, so these ones can all be done through NCU. We'll be fine with that. ESLint.js can be done. ngneat spectator we probably should run through. It is possible that this has an ng upgrade in it. Storybook we can do through NCU. Types we can do through that. TypeScript ESLint we can also do. So a lot of this stuff, the only one that we need to run the migrate command for is for the ngneat spectator. Hey, Ole, I'm doing well. Thank you for joining the stream today. I'm streaming during the days when I can, just because hopefully it's more friendly to like European people, right? But it's good to see a lot of people join. That honestly, my during the week streaming might not be able to. So thank you all for joining. Means a lot. Um, yeah, I'm doing well. You guys may have seen like my tweet that hey, I'm looking for a job. I am. Um, and this morning I wanted to actually start streaming a little bit earlier, but I was talking with a couple different recruiters and things like that. So um, but right now I'm focused full time on just finding a position that that's going to be what I want it to be and where I can help a company. Um, let's migrate the ngneat spectator, and then after that, everything else um, we can do through NCU. So npm nx migrate at ngneat spectator. So we'll grab this and get version 19.4.1. Um, we're definitely going to run our tests after migrating to ngneat spectator because we need to make sure that all of our tests are in a good shape after this migration. Um, there were no migrations, so we'll go ahead and create the lock file. Or not upgrade, we'll do the pnpm install. I'm reading the no frozen lock file. I'm like, we'll upgrade the lock file. No, the lock file is part of this, but we just, we want to do our pnpm install and make sure that our ngneat is all good. So just come in here and we upgraded spectator, upgraded ngneat spectator. Push that. There we go. Spectator is now upgraded. And we're going to run the, let's throw lint in there too. There aren't very many projects, So we'll just run everything. We'll run our test, our build, and our oh, with 5 plugins. It wasn't 5 nodes. Uh, so interestingly enough, our domain tests, it just grabbed it right out of the local cache. Nothing changed after upgrade. Spectator probably should have invalidated this, but maybe we don't use Spectator in any of those tests. The lint, no, it's grabbing all of our stuff from the cache. So, so yeah. Oh, no, it ran tests. So we must only use Spectator in our component tests. So it did run some tests, but not all of them. The manager fires the programmer, but the manager never gets fired. Um, that's a good question. I don't know how to answer that one. Um, I've never been a manager, so I can't tell you. Um, all right, so let's take a look at NCU again and just make sure that all of our stuff looks good. Um, so I think everything's looking good here. So we'll go ahead and we'll add the interactive update to it. So the dash I is interactive, dash U is upgrade. So we'll grab these. These are all fine. Types is fine. TypeScript is fine. ESLint, Storybook, StyleLint, TypeScript ESLint, and then we want this stylistic. I don't want to do Cypress migrations. So these are majors, and I don't want to do those today. We aren't going to be doing um, we do have component tests, right? And so upgrading Cypress might help with those component tests. Um, and we haven't looked at that either. Uh, so those might be helpful to look at too. I've um, got somebody messaging me about. I'm trying to be responsive to stuff that people are sending me. So sorry about that. Not professional. I typically don't respond to texts in the middle of a stream. Right now, random stream, random time, um, and got some people contacting me about, you know, programming work. So, but we'll get back to them in a little bit. All right. So we've upgraded a whole bunch of stuff. It installed all of the stuff for us. Um, and so we'll just say, hey, we upgraded our dependencies. And one thing we do need to take a look at are our component tests, and I completely forgot about those until I saw the Cypress stuff in here. So maybe we'll take a look at Cypress here in the future. But let's add our component. dash tests in also, and just see. So basically, we're running everything. Um, and it's probably going to rerun everything because we upgraded so many dependencies. While this is running, yeah, okay. So this linting stuff, this one I am like, I would love to skip over. So main and preview.js. We can go take a look and see if we can get that out of there. Like we don't want it linting this stuff. Yeah, I don't want it linting storybook. So everything worked out fine. Our tests are all good. Our build is good. Our test and our component tests all passed. So we're good there. The big issue we've got is we've got some errors in our components linting. Um, so let's fix those up first. Like these ones that I've got commented out tests, that's true. They're there because I haven't moved them to where they should be now. So we'll get those moved. But these I want to get rid of. So um, I did commit that. I did push it, I believe. So let's go ahead and get code editor up. Oh, this is what happens when you jump into it randomly. We'll update WebStorm really fast first, and then we'll jump into WebStorm. Um, this is a patch upgrade, so hopefully it doesn't break anything. League of Lego board. I like I like your handle, man. League of Lego boy. Uh, Never really played League too much. Um, I've been looking at like modding and stuff like that lately. So um, and specifically modding Rockstar games. So lately I've been looking at like Red Dead Redemption. Um, I've been looking at GTA 5. I think part of that is that GTA 6 is around the corner. Um, and like when I first met my wife, we would play GTA together. Um, like GTA 3 was the one that had just come out when I first met my wife. It was a fun game. Um, Definitely doesn't hold up to the test of time. But it was a really fun for what it was when it came out. Um, anyway, let's go take a look at our ESLint stuff. So ESLint Um, we want to take a look at our eslint.config.cjs, I believe. And the error has to do with our main.js where we've got a .storybook file. So we do have this that we're ignoring .storybook. Oh, but we're telling it any directory under storybook, and really we want anything under storybook. So I think that should solve our problem. Um, let's try running just our lint this time. And really, we can just run our the one that failed. We can actually just run this one right here. Uh, let's do that instead. Um, and this is one of the things I really like about NX is that it gives you the command that you can just add to the command line. Um, I I'll find something, right? Like the amount of time it takes will probably be just in talking to people. The job market is difficult right now. And so have I read the article about VTest? I have. Um, and so it's still trying to read this tsconfig.json. Um, think the *** is fine here. I think this is all of my TypeScript. This is my JSON and JSX. Um, so I think we need to just add this ignores here to that. Um, anyway, I got this distracted. Um, so the article about VTest, I have read it. I think VTest will be really cool with Angular, but I haven't set it up. Maybe that's something we can do with this project, right? Is run through that article. That would actually be something interesting. Let's pin that for maybe Friday. There we go. So we got rid of the errors, right? We've still got the warnings, but our errors are there. By just making sure that we add our ignores to the skip here. And actually, you know what? This is the cool thing about the new flat files is we can just say, hey, const ignores equals, and then we'll just grab this. And we'll just say as const here. Um, why doesn't it like my as const? I should be able to set the. Oh no, this is a CJS. I'm treating it like a TypeScript file, but it's not. It's a JavaScript file. I was like, wait, why can't I add as const? No, it's a JavaScript file. As const makes no sense in JavaScript. But the cool thing about this now is I can go in and instead of having to add this everywhere, I can just add my ignores. Um, and let's see, this should, um, this one I'm not gonna mess with. Um, because it's different than all the rest, but the other ones are basically the same. They were just missing the dist directory and the ESLint config.cjs. Let's Now that we've added our ignores in, let's run our lint again and just make sure that I haven't broken anything. Um, but yeah, let's take a look at the vtest. I was gonna say, things like when we take a look at things like analog, right, that have already got Vite in place, and things like that, that there's a way to do it, but you know what? Let's do it ourselves, right? Let's not be lazy. Let's go in and let's do it ourselves. Let's see what problems we run into in an existing project that has non-trivial tests that are already done in ESLint, um, and see what it would take to move those over. And pnpm exec nx run dash many, and let's just make sure we get our test. Um, well, actually, I just messed with the linting stuff, right? Uh, yeah. So great, my cache works. Everything came from the cache, and that's fine. It should have grabbed everything from the cache. I didn't touch anything that had to do with tests. I messed with the linting stuff. But yeah, let's on Friday, let's take a look at vtest. And that should be fun. Um, and that's the other thing I want to do. I want to do a bit more, um, just a bit more random, just like fun streams here and there. I wanted so if you guys saw on Twitter, I will be doing a workshop for the Angular community meetup on the 21st. We're going to be talking about the RX resource. So the resource stuff that was added to Angular 19.1. We'll be doing a workshop on resources and also linked signals and things like that. Um, so that one should be fun. Um, and we'll just go through and we'll build a simple project using the Star Wars API, so the SW API Swappy. Um, and once we do that, we will I don't know. I haven't decided exactly what I want to do with the API, but I want to do something interesting with it. So I'm working on that workshop also. So I want to do some streams on the resource. And I have some interesting ideas for things we can do with resource with our Sudoku game because we aren't really making HTTP calls. Um, but we have a lot of RxJS streams that would work great with resource. So I'm curious about, playing with those. I don't want to mess with it too much because I definitely want to get xState into the mix. But xState could use RxJS streams, or we could use resource to wrap xState. Just some different ideas that I have. So, all right, our linter all works. So we're in a good state. We fixed that bug. The benefit here is now our ignores are all in one place. So if I need to add a new ignore, I can add it here and know that all of my files are going to get the same ignores, the same ignore globs. So that's going to be a big help. So let's go ahead and commit that. And this change I made here was one of the big reasons that they went to the flat file, because I could export this glob, right? I could put it into a file, export it, and then import it here and import it in any of my other files where I need it, which will be helpful. I think you could probably have done that before, but they just made it easier and more explicit with the flat files. Um, so um, moved ignores shared variable. There we go. We've now pushed that. And now we're in a place to start looking at our tests, right? Um, so we just finished up the computed tests, and we even discovered some bugs that I don't know how long those bugs had existed, but because we never tested our grid, um, we discovered some fun bugs, which is always, when I write tests and I discover bugs, one, it's sometimes disappointed, but two, it also vets out the fact that, hey, you should have been writing tests better, dude, right? Um, so here's our grid feature, and we don't have tests for our grid feature either. So let's go ahead and add a new TypeScript file. And here we just want to add our grid.feature.spec.ts. Yep. So now we've got our stuff to test our grid feature, right? And we've been using Spectator and a signal store to set stuff up. So we could we can easily grab this stuff right here. Um, and this will set up our test, right? So resource looks interesting. How do you feel to use it with signal store? Not sure if I like it there. Will you do recording of the meetup? The meetup is always recorded. So there will be a recording of the meetup. Um, I will post on I'll post on LinkedIn and Twitter when the meetup video. So I don't know if this is the case, but when I was part of the organizers for the meetup, ngconf actually allowed us to have their editors go in and edit our meetup videos, which was very kind of ngconf to do that. Um, but the downside to that is that, when our um, meetups were done, it often took us a little bit longer to get talks available and things like that. Um, the all of the meetup recordings used to be available on the ngconf channel. I need to talk to one of the organizers and just make sure. Um, but yes, there will be a recording of the meetup, Ole, and it it will be posted, and I will let you guys know as soon as it's available. Um, but yeah, resource does look really cool, and I definitely like one of the things that if you guys have attended my streams, I'm a big fan of NGRX. I'm a big fan of Signal Store. I was a big fan of Component Store. Um, I want to make sure that I can make resource work within our Signal stores. So there will definitely be some stuff in there around that, right? Um, so we're going to describe our um, with grid feature, right? Um, and so the first thing we want to do is just get our test store in here. We aren't going to have our with update selected. We might need something like that, but for right now, we don't need it. But we've got our create service, and let's close this so that we can see more of our code. And it's complaining that I'm not using create service. We'll solve that issue, right? So it should, and we should take a look and just see what we expect our grid to do, right? Um, so one of the things that we expect our grid to do is we expect our last cell updated to emit with the row, column, and previous value whenever a cell is updated, right? Um, so one thing we can do is we can say it should emit on last cell updated, right? Um, and we can say when cell is updated, right? Um, so we can't call cell updated because that's an internal service, right? Um, however, we can call set cell value, which calls it, right? So here, instead of doing that, we can just say set cell value. Um, and this isn't going to work. Um, so the last cell updated values, we need to pass something in here that will update that cell, right? We need the value, we need the cell state, and we need the column, and then creating puzzle mode. Well, we don't need that. That comes from the state. So we need the value, the row, and the column. So we get value and then the cell state, right? Um, so here in our test, um, we can add a couple of things, right? We can say const new value equals, and here we can put a 1, and then const, we can say we need our cell state, right? And our cell state has a value, potentially a value on it, but we really need the row, column, and region on it. Um, so we can say cell state equals, and we can grab our create cell state function. And then inside of here, we can say, yeah, our value, we can set a new value, um, and our region is 1, our column is 1, and our row is 1. And that's enough for us to create, and I don't even think we need the value. I think we just need the region column, yeah. So here we can set our new value and our cell state. Um, so that works. But now we need to know what we're going to get out. And our expected values are going to be 1, 1, and undefined because the original value was undefined. And this should work, right? So if we run our tests, so we can say components test, and we can add the watch flag to it. We should see that this test works. At least I hope it does. Just want to be careful of my time. I need to actually, I have a meeting here in a little bit. Let me just verify when my meeting. Yeah, I've got a meeting. Got a meeting at 1 o'clock. So I'm probably going to end soon so that I can prepare for that meeting. But you can see that, hey, our test suite passed, and right, should have met on that. The last test that we want to make sure that we do, and this one we probably want to just nest our describes here. So here we can say um, last cell updated, um, and add that, um, and we'll move these inside of that one. It should emit when a cell is updated. So we've got that test in place. The next test we want um, is it should emit the last value of the cell. Um, and this one we want to do a little bit differently. So we're subscribing here. Um, we don't necessarily want to do that because I'm also not unsubscribing, which means I could leak memory here. One thing I want to take a look at is if we go to our package.json and oh, we do have high res. Okay. So we do have observer spy. Um, and if you guys haven't um, seen observer spy, um, high res observer spy. Um, this is this was put together by Shy, but there's a bunch of people who are working on it now. Um, and you gotta love Shy. Um, he's an amazing person, fun to talk to, right? Um, but if we take a look at the usage, right, there's some really cool stuff we can do with Observer Spy. So you can create these observables, but you can subscribe your spy to something, and then right at the end you need to unsubscribe, right? But um, you can say, hey, what's the first value, right? And then say, I expect the next one to be this, and blah blah blah, right? Um, but we can take a look at what values we expect, and we can wait for on completes or errors or all sorts of stuff. So observer spy is really cool. So let's fix up our test, right? Um, so here, instead of this, what we can say is we can just come up here and we can just say const observer spy equals um, subscribe spy to, and here we can just say, hey, we want to subscribe to the last cell updated. Um, and then I always do this, but I always do an unsubscribe. Oops, nope, unsubscribe. So I always do an unsubscribe. I'm not totally sure if it's necessary. Might be a little bit of cargo code programming. Um, but um, it's helpful. And then the other thing we can do is we can just say, yeah, this one works, but I actually want to make sure that we get values to equal this, but I believe this is an array of my tuple. I believe that's what we want. And we'll come back to this one. And there's a reason I wanted to do observer spy. Um, so yeah, so now we passed, right? So we got the right thing back. And to verify that this is working, like if I put a 1, 2 undefined here, we should see that, hey, your test fails and it fails because of that 2. So we can see, hey, we failed, and we expected a one, we got a one, or yeah, we expected a one, we received something different, right? We expected a one, we got a two, right? But this is what we expected. Um, so as soon as we set this back to a one, we'll be fine. But this will allow us um, to write our test and to make our test work the way we want it to. So this one, we're going to call it our original value. And then this one is going to be our new value, right? So here, we're going to set our cell value to our original value. And then we're going to turn around and set it to our new value, right? So the same cell we're going to set first to the original value and then to our new value. And then, so what we expect is we're going to get 1, 1, and then original value, right? So we're going to get our row and our column. We're going to get undefined, and then we're going to get whatever our original value is. Um, and this is a good test because it allows us to make sure that um, it allows us to make sure that we're handling everything right, so that our last updated is not just emitting, but it is emitting the values we expect, right? And we could even go so far as to go, spectator dot service, and we could add like const last value equals 3, right? And here we can say last value. Um, we could even say, new value, right? Twice. And here we can say new value, right? Because we only expect the new value to be emitted once, I believe. Um, and we failed. So we're missing the whole second place where we get the original or the new value. Um, so it is going to emit new value twice, and that's fine. Um, but this one should pass. And there we go, we passed, right? um, this is like one of the instances in unit testing where we kind of violate the unspoken law of do one thing, right? Like this test here does one thing. Um, it it sets up the cell and then it expects something to be emitted. This test we could technically argue that we're doing more than one thing here. Um, and that's true. And one thing we could do just to make sure that, hey, everything's working is we could change this to last value and say, the last one needs to have emitted the last value. But we're technically violating the do one thing. I don't know. You could argue that, right? Because we could say this part of the test is the setup, right? This part is the is where we're asserting certain things, right? And this part is where we check those certain things, and this is the teardown. Um, so we could argue that hey, you're doing three things in the assert portion of your test, right? Um, but in this case, I think it's worth it to validate that we're we're working the way we expect it to, right? Um, technically, we could set this up as three tests, where this moves up into part of the setup, and then this moves up into part of the setup, and then we're just validating the stuff, right? but it would just be us copying the same code over and over again. And technically, right, like there's a whole bunch of technicalities going on here. Um, I'm not the kind of person who likes to argue in technicalities, right? So I would contend that this is one case where the do one thing in your tests doesn't make sense because to do one thing really it would just be the same test copied over and over again, um, and I don't see a lot of benefit to doing that. Um, so um, this is all good. The interesting thing is that in testing this emit, we've actually tested the set grid values pretty well, or a set cell value pretty well, um, which also happens to be updating the testing the update grid, um, because here the update cell value actually calls this update cell value, um, and that's using the update grid. Update grid has error. I don't think we're doing anything on here with errors. Um, so our last two tests need to test the set grid value and we need to test set cell value. We've probably got pretty good coverage on set cell value just from these tests, but we haven't validated that it works. Um, so one thing we want to do is we want to say it, and we should say um, that grid values should update all cells, right? And let's see what it comes up with. Let's see. Set grid value values. Um, so here we can say this is as const. Um, um, it's using an observer spy for this, but I don't think we want that. So set grid values. It's saying argument of type read only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is not assignable to this. So it's the set grid values that's our problem. Um, row value. We could just say that this is read only, I think, and that would be fine. So it's saying, well, instead of doing this, like this read only stuff and trying to, like, technically this could be read only. Um, Actually, we could just do this read only that and that, but I don't think that's going to work either, will it? Oh wow, so we've got read only, read only. This is hilarious. So it's a nested read only because of that. Um, is that really the best way to do this? Um, I actually think you can use a const there. Yeah, so now that works. Um, is it possible to just do const here? No. Thought there was a shorthand for that, but I don't remember what it is. Um, so we're going to expect our grid. Um, and we may, instead of doing this, we may want to take a look at what we did with our grid computed feature. If we take a look at this, inside of here we had, yeah, we had this. Um, yeah, we had this fill grid function, but um, so we want to grab this get cell stuff here, but we can, and my fingers are off the keys, and this will probably have to be the last test we do. But we've got our grid here. We can call this values, right? So we can set our values here, but then we also need this function to get the grid values. Let's grab that. Um, and we can add that um, here. We got our get grid values. Um, and we can just say down here that we expect get grid values that to equal values, right? And so that should work. Um, hey, Michi Ganator. I'm pronouncing that as probably I'm probably butchering it. But I don't know. My Spanish speaking brain is taking over. And so but thank you for following. Please correct my pronunciation if I'm wrong. I want to make sure I get your name right. Um, but by doing that, we were able to verify that hey, our set cell values works. So the last thing we want to do, and then I need to end so that I'm ready for my call. But let's go ahead and um, let's copy this test, right? And set cell value should update um, the proper cell, right? So this is our setup. And we can even leave this expect in place. Um, but the next thing we can do is we can come up here and we could just say, hey, let's grab these ones right here. Um, so we're gonna set up, do some more setup, and then we're going to say, hey, let's set that one. Um, so there we go. So now we're using the last value. We're using our cell state. But now we need to modify this, right? So this grid, um, 1 and 1 would be, so here's 0, here's 1. So this should be 1, 3, 3. Um, so we can just say, hey, let's copy this also. And we could say expected values. And here it should be 1, 3, 3. The 1, 2, 3. And we can just say, hey, we expect get grid values to equal our expected values. And this should be all of the testing we need, right? Um, and it's complaining that, hey, you're duplicating code, right? Um, I don't like in tests, I want my code duplicated, right? I don't believe in dry in testing. And the reason for that is I want somebody who needs to maintain my tests to be able to come in and look at my test and be like, okay, first they create the service. Then they set up, some values and some expected values. They set the grid to those values. They check that, hey, we got those values. Um, then they create, the last value. They update a certain value in the grid, and then we check that the grid, right? So like you can read my test and be like, oh yeah, this makes sense, right? It's like my test written here almost becomes the test plan for, this if my tests are written properly, you could treat my spectator files, they're not my spectator files, but my jest files, right? My test files as the almost like the test plan, right? The problem with calling these the test plan is that you want your test plan documented somewhere, and you don't want it to be quickly changed by a developer and things like that. Um, if you're that deep into test plans, if you're not, I mean, if you want to treat this like the test plan, I mean, you're missing component tests in this test plan, right? You're missing end-to-end testing. You're probably missing some manual testing that you might want to do, right? The other parts of the testing pyramid. But this reads, it's easy to follow if you understand how tests work. And because of version control, right? Because of Git, we can go back and we can see the history of how these tests changed over time. Um, so let's make sure, yep, everything passed. We're good. Um, it's telling us, hey, your tests are taking a while. Okay, I get it. They probably are. And there's a good reason for that. The reason that our tests are taking so long is that, filling the grid, um, we go through 81 things, right? And then to get the values, we map through 81 things. So there, um, is it the best? Maybe not, but we could probably use resource in the future to handle this, um, or xState or something like that, right? To get a better performance here. I'm gonna end it here. Thank you guys for joining. Um, I'll be back tomorrow night at 5:30. There no more drill stuff going on. Yesterday was a bit like um, Monday was the quarterfinals. Last night was the semifinals to see if they made it to state. Monday night, her drill team got first place overall. And so we found out Monday night that they would be competing between 4 and 8 p.m., um, which happened to be when I was going to be streaming. So I'll be back streaming tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Mountain. And then on Friday, we'll take a look at Veet. It'll be a random stream. It'll just pop up. So watch for that one. But thank you everybody for being here. Um, had a great time. We'll talk to you later.